Hello friends! Today's episode will focus on a very special and not very well known Spanish duo, the Vinos de Madrid. This area has started to get more attention thanks to a handful of enthusiastic Garnacha producers, but the region is still far from being well developed. I sat down with Juan from the Bernabeleva winery that makes distinctive Albillos and Garnachas in the mountainous area west of Madrid. I've known his Albillo Cantocuerdas for a couple of years now, which always a great surprise ghost at any blind tasting session it appears on, but we will get into more details in the conversation later. Please enjoy learning about this area and the Bernabeleva wines, and I ask you to consider supporting the channel with a small monthly contribution on my Patreon channel in the description, in return for some extra benefits like submitting your own questions to my future guests, or have a monthly all-round roundtable with me. But now, grab a glass and enjoy! So Juan, we met basically a month ago, right? At an Austrian tasting. Finally meet you personally because I have one of your white wines on our wine list and I was very happy to see you. So welcome to the show.
I'm glad to meet you personally too. It was a pleasure to be in Austria and have the chance to show some of our wines and some different vintages of some of them.
So you come from a Spanish region which is not on everyone's radar at the moment, but it actually should. So you are in the eastern edge of the Sierra de Gredos mountains, basically 80 kilometers west of Madrid, right? But can you paint a picture for us of the region where you grow your beautiful grapes at?
Sure. Thank you very much. The official name for the region and the DO is Vinos de Madrid, but I think it has been a success for some of the wineries west of the province and region of Madrid to call it Gredos, because we are in the mountains, in the central mountain range of Spain, and we are in altitude on granitic soils. It's depends on the vineyard you are in. The rock can be softer or harder, but it's always rock what we have, or some sand from the decomposed rock. And its vineyards range from 650, 680 meters to 900 meters in San Martín de Valdeiglesias, which is the town where we have the vineyards. And it's been a region with a long tradition of winemaking, of wine growing, but it has not been really a business, at least in the last 50 years. So many people have kept their vineyards alive just as a way to show respect for the elder, but not really as a business, because the only chance they had was to sell the grapes to the cooperative, and it was not really worth it. They used to pay less money than the cost of just harvesting. So if you have to plow a couple of times and prune and you have to own the land also, it's impossible as a business. So, and it's also a characteristic of all the vineyards in the area that we only have old vines. And by old vines, I mean 60 years old or older, from about 60 to 110 years old, because phylloxera was in San Martín between 1912 and 1914. So reconstruction of vineyards started in the early 1910s. And it ended about 1950. And after 1950, very few people made enough money out of their vineyards to consider grape or vine growing a business. So it was not worth for them to cut off and replant when yields became lower.
Because you also started, or your winery started like 100 years ago, approximately, right?
Yes, that's right. My great-grandfather bought the estate in 1923, and he then set a nursery to sell plants, rootstock, and varieties to locals with an agronomical engineer, Luis García de los Salmones. And they were, I think, an important part of vineyard reconstruction in the area after centuries of vine growing in the area. And after my great-grandfather had his winery with the same name the state has had for hundreds of years, Bernabeleva, which means the path of the bear, or where the bear lives. It's funny because there were bears in San Martin right until in the 13th century, Cistercian monks arrived there and started growing vines to make wine. And he was making wine until 1939. Even during the Spanish Civil War, they were making wine there. It's a beautiful story, that about my great-grandfather. And he was a Republican. That means he was in the losing side of the Civil War. So he was not allowed to make wine anymore. He was told whom he should sell the grapes to after the war. And until he passed, my family was not allowed to make anything in the state. But after he died, my family was allowed to make wine again. And for a few years, they were making bulk wines. And my mother went in 1964 to the vine school in Madrid, professional training. And she was in charge of the state in the mid-60s and started making wine. And she was just about to bottle when my father was sent for a couple of years to the US. And he was a doctor, and he was in the children transplant program in the Spanish health system. And he went there to get trained for transplants. And those 2 years, it was my youngest aunt who took care of the winery and winemaking, and it was a disaster. She made vinegar for 2 vintages in a row, so my grandmother closed the winery forever. She said there would never be another bottle of Bernabeleva, and she was kind of right. She never saw another bottle of Bernabeleva. But after she passed, we decided we had to take this stone out of our shoes, or I don't know what the expression would be. And it was very frustrating to have this beautiful estate and just visit it to listen to problems and to pay something to repair or to face something that had happened, which was not nice. And we decided, okay, we either make something self-sufficient or we sink, but like in the Titanic with the band playing. And that's how.
So you decided in 2006 that you're gonna do basically a rebirth, or you're gonna do a revolution, basically a quality revolution in the home winery, right?
Yes. We had the chance to meet Raúl Pérez, the winemaker from Bierzo, who was part of the revolution there with Álvaro Palacios and his nephew Ricardo Pérez Palacios. And we were lucky to meet Raúl thanks to Andrés from La Cigaleña, a restaurant in Santander in northern Spain, with probably one of the best wine lists. Well, probably not, for sure, one of the best wine lists in Spain, but probably one of the first excellent wine lists in Spain. Over 30 years ago, he had amazing wines there. He got us his number, and he also got him to answer the phone for us. So it was great to get him to visit us and help us shape and develop the project, and push us into winemaking plot by plot, very carefully, putting a lot of attention, not to work a lot. That was kind of his motto.
Because there are not a lot of wineries in that area, right? Where you've been?
There were very few. In San Martin at that moment, there was one that was founded by some constructors who had lots of money, but a very different idea of wine from what people expected or what I understand. people wanted to drink, and it was also the cooperative there. And the cooperative had a good moment, probably in the late 60s and during the 70s, but they got into a fight. Every vintner was fighting each other. If you say white, I say black. You don't have the right to get paid more than me just because your grapes look better than mine. Mine are as good as yours. So they destroyed it themselves.
But that was then also basically the ground base for your revolution, right? Because your vines represent a different kind of approach and different kind of quality, but we are gonna touch up on. But I want to go back a little bit to the terroir, because you described a very almost desert-like environment, right? You have, how much rainfall do you have in average per year?
The average is 500 liters per year.
And but your altitude is basically one of the key to the freshness what you can bring with your grapes, right?
Yes, altitude and wind. We also always have wind, so ours are very healthy vines. We don't have fungi problems. It's very weird for us to get any mildew or to get any other problems.
And you have great temperature fluctuations, probably, right? Not only in day and night, but also in the year, right?
Yes.
You are very continental.
Yes, it's very continental. We have some influence from the Atlantic Ocean due to the south side of the Gredos mountain range, all the Tagus Valley, the Tietar and the Tagus part of the valley bring us some wind from Lisbon or from the Atlantic. And we see all the clouds coming from the sea, from the ocean, how they wash off as they approach. So that's why we get so little rain. If you go 50 kilometers west from where we are, you just you get 1,000 liters per year. So we have the wind, but we don't have the water. But that helps us a lot also with this continental character of this range of temperatures, as you said. In the winter, it usually snows a little bit, but it doesn't last long. It's just a couple of days or twice every winter, but it gets 10 below 10 degrees Celsius below zero. And in the summer, we can be during daytime at about 39, 30, 38, 40 during day. During the night, it may drop to 12, 15, something like that. So it's great for plants to stop, rest, and start again in the morning.
So you have quite a long vegetation period, probably, right?
Yes. Yes, it's it usually starts by the end of February, sometimes early March, and it was traditional to harvest in October. But for us, if we harvest in October, it's for the sweet wine.
Okay.
It was traditional to make very strong wines in the area with 16 or 16.5% of alcohol. But we get lots of alcohol because we have lots of sun. You may find some labels of ours with 15% or even 15.5 in dry wines, but they are harvested in mid-August.
Wow.
But we have so good acidity. pH is so low and acidity so high in tartaric terms. You don't notice. You wouldn't say in a blind tasting any of our wines are 14.5 or over that percentage.
That's true.
Alcohol.
That's true. I can confirm that. I also tasted one of your Garnacha, sorry. That was also 15.5, I think, but I was so in balance still. So yeah, because the wines are very concentrated and they have a fresh acidity, which is not so common for Garnacha, right?
Yes.
So
we are
you
used
work
to jam, no, fruit jams.
Yeah.
more than from this grape at least in Spain.
Yeah. So you have probably old bush vines only, right? So no trellises.
Yeah, it's only bush. We need shadow for the grapes to be protected, and also to make like a canopy of lower temperature. Shadow helps grapes not to get dry or not to get too hot. It helps a lot for us to work this way. It's difficult to harvest, to prune, to find the people to help us. It's getting more difficult every year, but you still can find people to work this way in the area, and it's very fulfilling to see how what the wine is afterwards.
Because how many hectares do you own?
It's about 50 at the moment. We didn't have intention to grow, but we have found this generation of old vintners who are retiring. They're retiring 88, 90, 92 years old.
Wow.
We have, for example, a man we buy grapes from who is 92 at the moment. And every paperwork he has to sign, we take it to his house because he cannot walk properly, or he needs somebody to drive him. But in the vineyard, he's quicker and more effective than any of us. It's incredible.
Cool. So you buy some grapes also from other vintners or growers, and you do own some land, probably, right?
Yes, we started with about 35 hectares of vineyards. And then we decided we needed to explore other areas of San Martin. So at first, buying some grapes from vineyards we liked the way they looked, their orientation, their altitude, and especially the person who was working there. And if the wine that we got out of those grapes was what we were expecting, we have tried to get agreements, long-term rents, or even we have bought some of those spots. We also had some rights to plant, some rights to plant vineyards. So we have also used them in very special spots we had chosen, and we have been letting rest and grow with this cereal. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the word.
No,
cereal for
some
beer.
other plants.
It's great for
barley.
Yeah, for the soil to get fed and to move. So we have used it to in some spots we have chosen. According, like if we had a Gredos official book for winemaking, we should only have only eastern or northern oriented vineyards. But we have found some spots, even with south or with a very hot west orientation, can be great because the plant cannot make all the process to a high maturation level. It stops when it gets too hot. So maturation is ripeness is not it doesn't go to the limit. So sometimes you get freshness out of spots like those. So we have made several experiments, and we have chosen some spots, and we have every kind of different plots. In this area, it's also very difficult to find big vineyards. The biggest we have is 3 hectares. And the smallest is 200 vines. It's like a garden sometimes.
Wow. So it's very fragmented. So you have to travel basically all the way if you do the vineyard work, right?
Yes. Yes. Sometimes we spend more time going from one vineyard to another, especially, for example, before harvest. The 3 weeks before we start harvest, we are watching every vineyard and almost every vine to see how grapes are, and it takes the whole day to go to every spot and watch what's happening.
So what are the historic varieties in this area?
For the red wine, Garnacha is the main one, but we have also found, for example, Listan Prieto. Almost in every old vineyard, there is at least a couple of vines of Listan Prieto, and there's also a lot of Carignana. For the reds, the cooperative and agronomical authorities tried to make a change towards Tempranillo in the 1980s and early 90s. But Tempranillo is probably not so well adapted to this region as in cooler areas like Ribera del Duero or Rioja. And for the white wines, we have a very local variety, which is Albillo Real, which is very special. It's a double use variety. It means you can eat it or you can make wine out of it. It has a name for being very oxidative, but what we understand is people were not doing it with as much care or with the means you need or the knowledge maybe to make it properly, because we make some long aging albillos. For example, we have just released 2017, which is not very typical in Spain for any white varieties, and we find it absolutely amazing. And this variety is very delicate, is very easy to lose acidity, very quick. We harvested, for example, this year in 2023, we harvested it we started August 2nd, harvesting Albillo Real.
Wow. And you still probably have how much alcohol?
Alcohol was about 13%, and acidity was barely 4 grams per liter. But still pH was 3.1.
Yeah, cool. As I said, we also have it on our wine list, and we also already compared it when we met personally, that also the decrease of alcohol had a pretty substantial change between the 17 and I think I tasted 19 or 20. But it's a very particular variety. It has a very strong variety of flavors, I would say. It's obviously a bit oxidated because you work with old oak, right? For this one. But it has still a kind of strong, almost like flowery element to it, and also this kind of tangerine, kind of ripe citrus notes. It's very interesting, but still on the other hand, like a very ripe stone fruity character. So a very kind of almost like a southern Rhone blend or something like this, or even northern Rhone blend would come to mind. So this kind of Mediterranean, kind of full-bodied, but yet still very aromatic white wine, right?
Yeah, that's a perfect description. Don't be confused. Of course, your description has been about our wine, and albillo in ancient Spanish means white and small. Like albariño in Galicia means white and small. Albillo from San Martín de Valdeiglesias and sometimes some towns around is Albillo Real, Royal Albillo. The court, when they settled in Madrid, they had the right to buy all the Albillo from this region. There are other varieties called Albillo in other parts of Spain, but it doesn't have this. They don't have these aromatics as Albillo Real do. Those are kind of flat compared to Albillo. They can be very interesting varieties in their place, but if you compare them to Albillo Real, they're so different. It's unfair for them to compare them.
Because they also have in Ribera del Duero, like Albillo, right? But this is a different one, probably.
Yeah, it was a variety they used to use for claretes. When they blended red and white varieties to make easy to drink wines. There is a little bit of smaller depth compared to Albillo Real. You can find excellent Albillo Mayor from Ribera del Duero wines, of course, but I think they have in that region, they have a knowledge we lack in our area, experience in making good wines or professional wines. It was almost lost or disappeared in Gredos. And it's been like a revolution, a small revolution in the area in the last 20 years.
And the other main varieties are obviously Garnacha for you, right?
Yes, Garnacha Blanca, of course, which is very different also to other Mediterranean white Garnachas, with lots of crispiness and tension. And we have also some Viura or Macabeo, some other smaller varieties which are typical in Madrid, like Malvar, for example. But they're not so important for us. Albillo Real and white Garnacha are our main varieties in the area.
And for the redwoods, only Garnacha?
Yes. We don't have enough of other varieties to make a single variety wine or to consider it an influence in any of our wines.
And so, from Garnacha, you only have one clone, or is Garnacha also like Tempranillo or Sangiovese, where you have like hundreds of them?
Yeah, we have lots of them. It's been centuries of crossing plants, and it's been also a tradition, even in the younger vintners who I have met in San Martin, who are between 60 and 70 years old now, to travel, and every time they saw a vine of Garnacha, they would take a piece of wood to graft in their vineyards. So there are lots of them. There has been like lots of blends of this thanks to traveling.
And how do they differ only in the vineyards, or also in terms of taste or structure, or is it a big difference?
Yes, they even look very different. Some bushes look like apollinear. I mean, they grow almost vertical, and some other are just like going towards their neighbors. And you always find these characteristics of Grenache, but of course you can find some gray ones, some hairy ones, deeper taste. But it's lots of blends of adapted plants, what makes our vineyard so special.
Probably every clone of this variety, like Grenache, is prone to oxidation, I would assume, or not. I don't know. You shaking your head.
Garnacha has a name for being very easy to get oxidized, but our experience so far, being 2007 the first vintage we put in the market, is those wines are still alive and nice to drink. So maybe it has been a matter of using the right temperature, the right ventilation, and the right tanks to age. So the wine has not been so sensitive to oxidation to consider it a defect or something that makes them difficult to enjoy.
But you also use stainless steel, or I would assume temperature controlled stainless steel for one kind of wine and also for the fermentation, but for the maturation, obviously old oak barrels, right?
We use oak or concrete for fermentation and maceration, and sometimes even open plastic tanks, small ones for 1,000 kilos or 1,500 kilos, no more. And we use 500-liter oak barriques or bigger, up to 4,000 for aging. We kind of run away from stainless steel for maceration or for fermentation, or even for aging. For aging, it's too reductive for us. And for delicate moments like fermentation, the temperature in the winery changing so much from night to day affects a lot to the wine which is in stainless steel, even with temperature control. So we rather use tanks with more inertia, like wood, like concrete, or like oak or even concrete, than stainless steel. That every degree change in the air is a degree change in the wine. Stainless steel is to clean the wines for all the precipitation of particles which are not properly wine. We leave the wines in the cool room for a winter before we bottle, so we don't have to filter.
So basically for gravity settlement, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's it.
How would you describe the special taste, not only Bernabeleva, or maybe also your particular area? How would you maybe differentiate the kind of Garnacha what you produce from other ones?
I would say this large nature of herbs, like especially fennel. In matters of aromas, fennel and thyme are probably the main characters, and saltiness, minerality in taste are also probably what you always find in the San Martin Valley, or even in the region.
And is it because of the environment, or?
I think so. It's a large nature area with very shallow soils. There is no when you plow, it's very common to hear the plow scratching the mother rock of the land. Also, we have the vines in the vineyards were planted in the worst plots for agriculture. If they had a good plot, they would put cereal, so they wouldn't die from starving. If the land was not too good but was not bad, they would plant olive trees. And if it was really bad, they would try to plant vines. And they have developed. For example, Viña Bonita is one of our best plots, if it's not the best we have. Depth is 15 centimeters. Then you find the mother rock. 100 years ago, you could use people and make them carve the soil to plant. Maybe you got 2 or 3 men died per hour or something. I'm exaggerating. But you could do that. No, today you would need a diamond machine to break the rock, and you would still could do it, but it would be quite a weird thing to do.
So now I'm also feel almost stupid to ask the following question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So you don't really have any fear of the climate change and even more sun or heat and less rain?
I think yes, it's going to become a problem. But in my personal experience, it's been so short. I mean, 2007 was the first vintage we put in the market, and it's quite steady what we have had these years. Maybe it changes one week ahead or 1 week later. Maybe you can notice more frequent strange episodes. For example, we have had 300 liters of rain in the last month. So it's more than half the rain of 1 year. But besides these very special episodes, I don't know if things are changing so much for us to get to conclusions. I think we should have a wider view, not only look into our state to get to good conclusions. We are harvesting a lot earlier than my mother did, for example, in the 1960s, but it was also a different wine what we wanted to make. So it's not only been climate change, but has made us change harvest date or pruning shapes or decisions. So far, we are concerned, but not frightened. we are expecting what happens, or we are watching what happens. Of course, we are trying with old vines, like old varieties like Listan Prieto, which was almost extinct in the peninsula. Now you can still find it in the Canary Islands, but it's not so frequent in the peninsula. Maybe it's one of the plants we can use, or Castellana Blanca. We have some plants of that variety. What we have seems very steady in the hardest years or vintages. So maybe it's something we will need to use. Anyway, it's very difficult. Well, it's like driving a car. If you make a quick change on the steering wheel, you may have an accident. Or if you push the brakes too hard. So we have the radio off, and the air conditioning making us not sweat a lot, so we don't get asleep or dizzy or anything, and we can watch what happens.
Cool. But for now, I recommend everyone to look into these wines because they are very special and unique. Thanks for taking the time, Juan, and I wish you all the best and keep the air conditioning on in the future.
We will try to use some CO2 neutral energy for the air conditioning.
Let it be.
Thank you very much.